Okay, Andrew, there's a couple of things I forgot to mention about JavaScript that are important before we go on. Number one is a function. To get a function is a snippet of code that can be run multiple times whenever you want to call it. So it's very useful. Say your function is 10 lines long. Well, every time you wanted to call that in throughout your document, you'd have to write those 10 lines over and over again. With a function, you can write that code one time and then just call the function with one word, basically, every time you want that function to be run. So to write a function, you use the word function, and then you name your function, my function, and then you give it parentheses and curly brackets. Inside the curly brackets is the code to be rendered. Okay, so document dot write, and we'll say hello. All right, so there's my function. I go here. I was messing around earlier, so don't worry about that. When I refresh, though, it didn't put anything on the screen because I didn't call the function. I made the function but didn't call it. So I go down here and I say, I'll go ahead and call the function. My function, parentheses, and semicolon. So now the page is going to get run. It's going to build the function, and then it's going to call the function. And you can see that it wrote out hello on the screen. Now, functions can receive parameters. We'll just call this my param. What this means is every time I call the function, I can put something inside of the parentheses, and whatever I put inside the parentheses gets thrown into this variable, my param. And that variable right there. So I can put hello here. And then this variable can get I can use that then inside my function. It becomes available to me. And oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's change this so we can see the change. So it's going to put hello world into the variable my param, and then it's going to use that variable inside of the function. And you can see it worked. Good. So the next thing I want you to see is, leave that there, is arrays. Arrays are very important. We use them quite a bit. It's a variable that can hold several different values. Up till now, variables you've used hold one value and one value only. Well, an array can hold hundreds of values in it in one word. So let's do that. Let's say var, and then we'll call this variable x, or you can name it whatever you want. But to fill an array, we'll just put brackets here, and we'll give it some, what do you call it? Come on now. Values, okay? We'll say car, truck. This is what you saw on the screen earlier. I was trying it out. Bike, bus, and all these are strings, so we're putting them in quotations, and boat. Okay, so there we go. We have, what, five different things or pieces of information in the variable x. And the way we call these is, the first one is value 1, or 0, I'm sorry. And then this is value 2. Come on, Matthew, think out loud. Value 0, this will be value 1 then. This will be value 2, 3, and 4. It always starts with 0. JavaScript, for whatever reason, always starts with 0 on everything. So you have to think of 0 as 1, and then 1 is 2, if that makes any sense. But anyways, we'll say x, and then brackets, and 0. So we'll pass this variable as my parameter. And of course, x0 is car. So this is equal to car, therefore this will be equal to car, therefore this will be equal to car. When I do that, it says car, if you followed everything that happened there. If we put this to 1, it's going to be truck. Good. All right, now the last thing I want to show you is loops. And we'll go down here. We'll actually get rid of this for right now. And we'll say, we'll make a loop. And the way you do a loop in JavaScript, I think we looked at them in live code. They were repeat, but this is for, it's a loop. And it takes a parentheses and curly brackets. And the curly brackets is the code that's going to get run. But there are 3 different parameters that you need to pass for this loop. Number 1 is a variable, an integer, okay? So we'll just use the word I for integer. We're going to start off with 0. Excuse me. The second piece of information that this loop needs is a condition. We need to break out of this loop sometime. So when are we going to break out? We're going to do this loop as long as I is, less than 5. So as soon as I is 5 or greater, I'm going to stop doing this loop. In other words, I'm going to run whatever code I have in here over and over again until I is no longer less than 5. The third piece of information is what to do with I after every time I run the loop. And we want to increment it by 1. So first time I run the loop, I is going to be equal to 0. It looks at the condition. It meets the condition. It's less than 5. So it does whatever code's inside the brackets. Then it goes through and does it again. Now I is going to be equal to 1. It's still less than 5, so it does the code. And then it's going to be equal to 2. And so on until it gets to I is equal to 5 and it no longer runs the code. It skips out and starts running other code after it. So how do we do that? We can say the best way to do it is just I and 2 plus signs. In JavaScript, ++ means to increment that integer by 1. All right, so I hope you understand all of this. Now the code we're going to do is we're going to call our function up here. Okay, so let's put our function down here. And we're going to pass the parameter x and pass that I. Interesting, because the first time I is equal to 0, so the first time it's going to be equal to car. The next time we run through the code, it's going to be equal to 1, so it's going to be truck. You see how that's going to work. So we'll do that. Let's refresh, and you can see car, truck, bike, bus, boat. But that looks horrible because they're all just right after each other, and they don't no spaces or anything. So what we'll do is we'll concat. This is essentially a string. We'll concat something else onto it, and we're actually going to put in some HTML code for line break. In HTML, with this is a tag for a line break, a new line. So it's going to do car, new line, truck, new line, bike, new line. All right, so let's see what it looks like. There we go. Now you can see how for loops would be really good if we had a table to fill out, a big old table. You could use a couple different for loops. For loops inside of for loops, like you could say, this for loop here, the first for loop is each row, and then a for loop inside of that for loop would be each column in the row. And you can fill out tables pretty quickly using repeat loops or for loops. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. It's clear as mud. I think that's all I need to show you in JavaScript before we go on into our program again. All right.